Picture yourself driving down the highway, and you see something like this. In the left lane, a luxury Lamborghini turning heads with the roar of its exhaust, fresh off the factory floor. Glossy, attention-grabbing, impossible to ignore. In the right lane, a 12-year-old Toyota. Paint faded, sun damage visible, a crack in the bumper, nobody's eyes drawn to it, and a cup of tea sitting in the cup holder. And figuring out which of these two drivers is wealthy isn't exactly hard from the outside. I'm 74 years old, and for more than 40 of those years I've talked to thousands of people, and almost every single one of them had roughly the same thoughts about money, about how money works, and how you're probably supposed to manage it too. And that answer, the one nearly everyone gives, myself included at one point, was exactly backwards. The one inside the old Toyota is the safer bet. The one inside the luxury Lamborghini is probably drowning. So how did we get here? How did the people who look the richest become the most likely candidates for bankruptcy, while the people quietly building real wealth go out of their way to look like they have nothing? This question covers the whole story, really. I remember the moment I accepted this truth like it was yesterday. 1979. I was sitting in my office across from a man whose car was worth more than my house. A sharp suit, a confident handshake. He wanted a loan for a temporary cash flow issue. His numbers caught my attention. He had more cash flow than 97% of the clients who came to me that year. And he had a little over $400 to his name. After I gave him the loan, I gave him a piece of advice he didn't want. He left without listening. 3 years later, he had already lost the car, the suit, and every other valuable thing he owned. Now let me show you who's actually sitting inside that Lamborghini. Because this picture isn't the one the dealership wants you to believe. Heading into 2026, roughly 60% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck. That number alone is disturbing enough. But here's the detail that should really stop you. Among people with six-figure incomes, earning $100,000 a year or more, about 40% were also living paycheck to paycheck. 2 out of every 5 high earners. The exact people we assume have it all figured out. Nothing left at the end of the month. The average American household spends about $6,500 a month just to survive. That's roughly $78,000 a year, before a single luxury is added. Meanwhile, the personal savings rate, the slice of income people actually manage to set aside, sat at around 4.5% at the start of 2026. Historically, that number was closer to 8.5%. We're saving half of what previous generations saved, while spending more than ever just to look the part. More than half of adults said they couldn't cover a sudden $1,000 expense from savings. More than a quarter had no emergency fund at all, the highest level ever recorded. So when you look at that shiny Lamborghini and feel a flicker of envy, remember this. A large share of those monthly payments are being made by people one missed paycheck away from a real crisis. Here's the thing. Almost everyone overlooks, and it explains the entire illusion. The loud version of wealth and the real version of wealth are rarely the same person. We were simply trained to confuse the two. The human brain is wired to read status. For most of our history, these signals carried survival information. Who had food, who offered protection, who was worth allying with. That instinct never disappeared. It just got hijacked. Today the signals are a watch, a logo, a car, a renovated kitchen, a vacation photo shot from exactly the right angle. We're not really buying the object. We're buying a sentence we hope a stranger will say about us. Let me tell you the general name economists gave to this vicious cycle. Rowing in place. You buy the nicer car. You feel that lift for a few weeks. Then it quietly becomes your new normal. The lift fades and you reach for the next upgrade just to feel that same spark again. The scenery never changes because you're standing still. And the cruelest part, the treadmill speeds up the exact moment your income rises. This is called lifestyle inflation. It's the silent killer hiding behind every paycheck to paycheck six-figure earner I've known across my 50-year career. Now let's make it clear that wealth, in fact, is often nothing but an illusion, because the math behind this is harder than people realize, and harder than they're able to grasp. Let's start with the car, the most visible status symbol in American life. In December of 2025, the average price paid for a brand new vehicle hit a record, just above $50,000. The average monthly payment climbed to the highest in history, nearing $770. More than a third of new car loans now run longer than 6 years. Nearly a fifth of new car loans carry a monthly payment that exceeds $1,000. And here's the part the dealership never mentions. A brand new car loses a fifth of its value in its very first year. So when someone signs an 85-month loan, for a long stretch of time they owe more than the car is even worth. Underwater, paying interest on value that's already evaporated. Multiply that across the whole country, and Americans are now carrying more than $1.67 trillion in auto loan debt. I lived through this same pattern back in the 80s, when the numbers were smaller. In 1985, a young engineer came to me for advice on a car loan, brand new, financed at a rate that unsettled even me at the time. I asked him a single question: what would happen if you invested that monthly payment instead? He laughed it off. He bought the car. 15 years later, he called me, not about the car, that was long gone, but about retirement. He was far behind, very far behind. He remembered that conversation word for word. Some lessons cost exactly as much as someone's refusal to learn them the easy way. There's a calculation almost nobody runs before they sign. Take that average car payment, let's say $750 a month. Drive a paid-off used car instead, and put that same $750 into a low-cost index fund every month. At an average annual return of 7% after inflation, that habit grows to well over $100,000 in 10 years. Keep it up for 30 years and you're looking at a figure north of $900,000. The real choice was never nice car versus plain car. The real choice was a nicer car now or close to $1 million later. And the same logic stretches straight into the biggest purchase most people ever make in their lives: the house. A bigger house isn't just a bigger payment. It's more property tax, more insurance, more maintenance, and the pressure to fill those rooms with furniture you'd never have bought if the room didn't exist in the first place. One decision quietly turns into a dozen. Americans were carrying $1.25 trillion in credit card debt at the start of 2026. The average interest rate on cards that charge interest was close to 21%. When you finance a lifestyle on a credit card at 21% interest, you're not just paying for the thing itself. You're also paying the bank a steep fee for the privilege of pretending you could afford it. Now here's a number that affects everything and is deliberately made invisible. Net worth. Income announces itself loudly. Net worth stays silent. In America, the average, the true middle point, household net worth sits around $192,000. But the figure reported as average is closer to $1,060,000 because a small group of enormously wealthy households drags that average upward. The median tells you the truth. Most people own far less than what the cars and houses around them suggest. And here's the line. Research keeps hammering home. Your savings rate predicts your future better than your income does. A high earner who hasn't managed to save anything ends up poorer in retirement than a middle-income person who quietly invests a fifth of their income. Researchers at Experian found that 61% of households earning more than $250,000 a year never drive luxury brands at all. They drive Hondas, Toyotas, Fords. Decades of research into American millionaires uncovered something that still surprises people. Most car buyers tie up roughly a third of their net worth in vehicles. Real millionaires tie up about 1%. Fewer than a quarter were even driving that year's model. About 69% of millionaires never had a six-figure household income in a single year throughout their entire careers. Roughly 80% are first-generation wealthy, meaning they built it themselves. When people stop spending money to look rich, they finally find the money to actually become rich. Read that sentence one more time. It reverses almost everything the marketing world spends billions trying to teach you. This brings us to an important fork in the road. Simple enough to change how you look at every garage you see in your neighborhood. Income is the water flowing through the faucet. Wealth is the water you actually keep in the tank. Someone might have an enormous faucet, a big salary, but a tank with a cracked bottom. They spend every dollar the moment it comes in. They look rich but own almost nothing. Someone else might have a modest faucet, but a sealed tank, and quietly end up the wealthier of the two. A luxury car signals a big faucet. It tells you nothing about the tank. Looking poor is simply what a full tank looks like from the outside. And there's something even deeper than the tank itself. What the tank allows you to do. Call it optionality. Can you walk away from a job that's draining you? Can you take 6 months off during a family emergency? Can you turn down money that would compromise something you believe in? Let's make this concrete with two people you've probably worked alongside. Same salary, started the same week. The first celebrates the new job by leasing a car that matches his title, renting an apartment that stretches his budget. From the outside, he looks like the one winning. The second keeps driving the car he already owns, shares a modest apartment, and quietly routes a fifth of every paycheck into investments before the money ever touches his checking account. For years, he looks like the one falling behind. Then a recession hits. Both get the same envelope on the same morning. The first has almost no savings and a stack of payments that don't stop just because the income did. He takes the first job offer, on whatever terms it comes with. The second has a cushion deep enough to breathe. He turns down offers that weren't right and accepts the one that was, on his own timeline. Same salary the whole way through. The only real difference: one spent a decade buying the appearance of wealth. The other spent that decade quietly buying the real thing. So let me give you the actual playbook. Moves you can apply this week. First, separate your income from your identity. When a raise comes, let the gap between what you earn and what you live on widen, instead of upgrading your lifestyle to match. That gap is what eventually turns into freedom. Second, make spending harder, make saving automatic. Willpower runs out at exactly the wrong moments. Automate the transfer the day you get paid before the money ever feels spendable. Put a waiting period between wanting something and buying it. The point isn't to be stronger than your impulses. It's to never encounter them at all. Third, use what you have until it dies. A phone that works doesn't need replacing because a better camera came out. Define broken by function, not by feeling. Before any purchase, divide the price by how many times you'll realistically use it. Run that math honestly, and most impulse purchases collapse on their own. Fourth, test before you commit. Rent it. Borrow it. Try the cheap version first before you furnish an entire hobby you might abandon in 3 weekends. Fifth, define what's enough before the money arrives, not after. High earners fall into this trap because they never set a finish line, so every raise just pushes the goalpost further away. Sixth, and the hardest one, mute the comparison feed. Most of the pressure to look rich doesn't come from your real life. It comes from people showing off a prosperity they can't actually afford either. None of this is complicated. That's the point. Looking poor isn't about suffering. It's about refusing to spend money on the opinions of people who aren't paying your bills, and directing that money toward your own freedom instead. I've watched this from both sides of the table for 50 years. The man with $400 in the bank and an expensive car. And the quiet ones, the ones nobody ever asked for advice because they never seemed like they needed any. Who turned an ordinary income into a life nobody could touch. That old Toyota with the cracked bumper was never a symbol of struggle. To anyone who understands the game, it's the calling card of someone who already won, and simply chose not to announce it. The goal was never to look rich. The goal was to be free, and freedom is quiet. It doesn't need a badge, a logo, or a crowd watching. Dear listeners, my name is Ryan, and I've been in this game for over 50 years. Next time you feel the urge to spend money proving something to people who aren't even watching, remember the Toyota. I'll be waiting for you in the next video.